Now, another thing that is an aspect of fighting at this time is individual initiative. Should you have it or shouldn't you? If you defy an order, there are two possible consequences. Great success, honor, promotion, or the end of your career. Because if you defy an order, you had better damn well be right. Because if you mess, the thing is, because of the communications factor, you don't know what's going on at the other end of the field. It could seem perfectly logical to you that this is what you have to do to win the battle. But in doing that, you could in fact mess up a strategy that you have not been privy to. So what happens when Rennie gets the order? He sees that, yes, we can get across that barricade. We can actually turn this flank. But we have just got a specific order to withdraw. And that is what he does. He pulls back. And of course the British are never going to get that chance again. Nonetheless, Pakenham decides that he wants to try to knock out some of the American guns before he tries a big all-out attack. Because the heaviest cannon that he's got are naval 18-pounders on naval carriages. He's got some field artillery, but the field guns, I think he has 2 9s and the rest are 6-pounders. Reasonably light. The Americans have 1 32 and 2 24-pounders, several 12-pounders. You know, they've got some really good artillery on that line. Long range, very devastating. He wants to try to knock that out. So what's happening on the American side at this point? Well, obviously some of the Tennesseans are a bit shamefaced about what's happened because they ran away from the line, but the British were held off. And Andrew Jackson might have known, in fact, certainly did know what Pakenham was doing. He was a very good soldier. He was a formally trained soldier. Even though he'd come in from the militia, he'd studied his stuff very well. He doesn't bother telling anybody, oh no boys, this wasn't an all-out attack. He tells everybody, you've beaten the British. You've driven them off. You have done exactly what you should do. Now you Tennesseans, you can get back on that line, but you better not run again. So the British, as I say, come along with their idea to knock out some of the American artillery. And during the artillery duel, as it's known, it's in the 2nd of January, the British bring up a fair stock of ammunition, as much as they can, and begin to bombard the Americans. Here's something else to remember. The American supplies are right behind the line. The British supplies are with the fleet, 38 miles away. Every bullet, every ounce of powder, every cannonball has to be rowed all the way from the fleet around Pea Island, Ship Island, Cat Island, Bayou Bienvenue, Bayou Mazin, Villeray Canal, then taken off and carried to the battlefield. The artillery duel begins, and of course each side is trying to knock out the other side's guns. And a couple are knocked out on both sides. But as the day goes on, all of the British artillery begins to fall silent because they've shot all their ammunition. But what's the impression from the American side? We are trying to silence all of their artillery, knock it all out. We're still firing. They've all stopped. we've won. So, on the British side, people are getting frustrated. Why the hell are we hanging about? These are only American militia. We've been running rings round them all the way up north. Why are we standing here? Why are we waiting? And on the American side, that's two. So when Pakenham puts his plans together for what is to be his final attack on December 8th, he knows that the morale of his men is going down. He has got to give them a victory. At least he's got to let them fight properly. And if they can get to grips with these fellows, he knows that they can win. In fact, Jackson knows if they get to grips, they're going to win. Because another thing that Jackson does is that he's got some men that want to get over that barricade and start charging the British. And Jackson is absolutely firm on the fact that, you know, you go over that wall, you'll be shot. And it won't be them shooting you, I'll shoot you. This is where I want you, this is where you stay. And Jackson was not a particularly nice man, but he was exactly what was needed at the time. He suspended habeas corpus. You know, the thing about free trade and sailors' rights, guess who impressed sailors against their will for the Navy? Because he wanted boats in the river, and so what? You're in the Navy now. In fact, a while back at the Historic New Orleans collection, I went to a very interesting talk. I wish I could remember the fellow's name. I don't need the name of his book, but he'd done a book about Andrew Jackson. Basically, one of his ideas, one of his theories, which he made a very good case for, is that a lot of the legalities behind the current Patriot Act was based on what Andrew Jackson did in New Orleans to make sure that he had an army and that he could control it. It really was quite brilliant. Anyway, Pakenham, to quote his famous brother-in-law, the Duke of Wellington, let's see if I can get this just right. He is not perhaps the brightest general, but I am not led astray when I say he is one of the best we have. He was not an idiot, and he knew how to take advice. So he came up with, in conjunction, I have to say, with Admiral Cochrane, he came up with a very interesting plan. It was an attack on both sides of the river. So what he did, or what the plan was that a fairly significant force under Colonel Thornton of the 85th Foot, consisting of the 85th, the detachment of Marines, sailors, the light companies of the 1st and 5th West India Regiments, who were black troops raised in the Sugar Islands, but they were actually regular fighting troops, and were actually on the campaign because British government realized what the tropics were like, and that you know, this part of the world at that time was sort of white man's grave, so better have troops that aren't going to drop dead during the summer. That's why the 1st and 5th West India were there. They were the garrison troops. But anyway, they were supposed to cross the river at midnight, or just after, and attack the American positions on the West Bank and turn those guns, which were raking the river road, onto Jackson's flank. So that then not only were the troops on the river road not going to be fired at, but Jackson's own flank would now be vulnerable. And that would coincide with a general attack on the East Bank. And the idea there was that the attack would be in